Silo has finally returned with the first episode of Season 2, and with the season finale last year teasing the idea of other silos not actually being that far away, this premiere focused on exactly that. But what was particularly interesting was that Juliette ended up in a silo that had fallen into ruin and turmoil, where the people revolted and rebelled several years ago, and ultimately led themselves to their own deaths. This was interesting because we'd only ever seen it done on an individualistic scale in Season 1, but the hope and optimism of an entire civilization walking out into the poisonous air and the land in front of them becoming a barren mass grave filled with bones and corpses showed that they truly didn't know what they were letting themselves in for. With an ending that was definitely surprising and made us question who the person was, and an entire episode that burned in the slowest way you could possibly imagine. Let's delve into it and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is Silo Season 2 Episode 1 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The opening scene. The first scene of this episode showed us what the time of a rebellion looked like within a silo. We don't know what led to the events of division forming in Silo 17 or how long tensions had been rising, but the fact that there were posters demanding the truth, graffiti going against the founders, and also the participation and leadership of a sheriff in this fight with many people that were on side, something drastic must have happened to the people in there for that amount of individuals to no longer believe that the world outside was poisonous and come to the decision that they were being held captive. What this scene showed us was what could happen if the people that get it in their heads that it's better out there get influenced and begin to get inside the minds of the other people in the silo and aren't dealt with immediately. As we saw, it causes mass chaos and for the entirety of the silo and the people within it to die. When one person has it within their head, it's easy to get it out of the others before it spreads, as they usually die following being sent out for a clean. But if given time to spread and for doubt to grow within a collective, it becomes just as poisonous as the air outside, and it's an issue that causes mass devastation. This is why Bernard Holland always dealt with the people so quickly. I found this opening scene to be what could have well happened if the rebellion was successful in the silo we were first familiar with, or even what could have happened if people listened to Allison way back in the first episode of Season 1 when she was claiming that the world was safe to go outside to. The singular green flag that was planted in the ground amongst the mass grave for what must have been thousands of people was a haunting image that showed the mindset that they were in when they left, and that they genuinely did believe that life was going to be better on the outside. Seeing this shot here with the entrance to two completely different silos being so close to one another was something that I found really fascinating. There's entire civilizations so close to the very one that Jules and the people in Season 1 were in, but because of the crater-type design, everybody is none the wiser. If only they knew. Jules in Silo 17. Throughout Jules' time in the silo, we saw that she went through different stages in her mind. The first was shock that there was another one that was so close to where she was originally from. But the second thought that she had was how it was that she was going to survive, because this one was barren, and as she was walking around she saw that there was once a rebellion that took place once upon a time. As she tried to enter, there was emphasis on the tape that she had on her throughout every movement that she made, because the more she was moving with the enhanced force that she was using to break into the silo, the more it was loosening the very tape that was preventing the toxins and poison in the air from entering her system. I thought it was a nice touch because it was highlighting the ever-present threat that was there, and that she wasn't just out of the woods yet. Seeing words such as lies written everywhere and the main screen in the canteen being destroyed, it really highlighted the mood and mindset of the people during the time. That screen within the silo pretty much represents optimism and a future, because that's their only view of the outside world, so the fact that it was destroyed showed that they gave up on it and no longer believed. With her running out of oxygen in her suit, she needed to take the risk and smash the glass in her mask in order to start breathing again. And with her doing that, it showed that the air inside of the silo hadn't been compromised. Plus, she then poured water on her suit to make sure that there were no toxins that were present in case she ended up touching it. All the time that Jules was walking around, there was a dissonance, because there was this haunting sense of familiarity that was present in Silo 17. This is why I feel like the flashbacks of Jules being younger were made such a main focus and accompanied a lot of what we saw. Jules was now all alone in this silo that was plagued with death. And the flashbacks took Jules back to a time where she was alone and her life was also riddled with death because her brother and mother had recently died, and she left her father because she couldn't stand the constant reminder of how they were gone. So it was almost as if her mindset was similar to how it was back then. With Walker mentioning to the young Jules that the worst feeling that she had was when she woke up and she thought that she was all alone and had been left in the silo, it was a moment that tapped into that very fear of being alone, but also the fear of being left behind in a silo, showing that the people of the silo did have the desire of one day being free. However, in this instance, it was connected to Jules being in Silo 17 and having nobody else around at that moment in time. The flashback where Jules and Shirley went down to the level of the drill, and Shirley mentioned how she was left down there with the lights off one time and needed to move slowly in order to survive. Otherwise, the alternative option was to just give up and die. That also tied into the mindset that Jules had to adopt whilst being in this new environment, as the younger Jules said that she never would have been able to have done that. But we saw her doing exactly that when she built the bridge to get across to the area where the metallic clanging was coming from. It was her only way of being able to make it out alive. This decaying, rotting silo that was filled with death and darkness felt like it was also symbolic of Jules's mind and the situation that she was in. There was only a small place within the silo where life seemed to be thriving, and that was where the water was dripping from the plants. It felt like that one specific thing in particular represented the singular person that Jules stumbled across at the end when she crossed that bridge that she made. During the climax of the episode, Jules heard some music starting to play, so she followed it back over the bridge, the very place where she thought there was originally life. The room that she entered looked like it had the phrase, "He will get in sooner or later," written on the wall, and within a room behind a locked door there was a mysterious man that said that if she tried to open the door again then he'd have to kill her. This individual seems to be the only survivor of the rebellion that took place. This then begs the question on who it could be. We know it's not the sheriff, as he died alongside his flag as he led many of the people to their deaths, so could this be somebody that was locked away during that time period and has been stuck there ever since? There were two main characters that were named in the opening scene, Russell and Timmy, the sheriff's son. It felt like Russell was somebody that was leading the people that wanted to stay within the silo, so it could well be him, but judging by the sheriff's actions, it sounded as though he killed him, as he was originally supposed to be brought in alive, but the next time we saw the sheriff, he was covered in blood and said that his finger slipped, so I think Russell probably died. That then leaves Timmy. However, Timmy went outside with his father when the people left the silo, so he would have had to have returned in a quick amount of time. It's something that's definitely the main talking point following the end of the episode. But what's interesting is the fact that somebody did actually manage to survive and has been able to live long enough after the events occurred. Could that be why one eye color is different to the other? Could that have occurred due to him being exposed in the outside environment? One thing I will say though is that the episode was titled The Engineer, and with the engineer getting Timmy to deliver the note to the sheriff and not doing it himself, could this person be the engineer? With the person also saying that they'd have to kill Jules if she tried to open the door again, I feel like he said that because he obviously doesn't know if he can trust her or not. The only people he's known in his life were killing one another or were led to their death by somebody else, so he probably doesn't give out his trust that easily. My review of the episode. There were things about this episode that I liked and even loved, but there were some things about this episode that I didn't. I don't actually mind the fact that it was a slow burner. This was a reintroduction back into the show, and we were navigating a space that was familiar but was so different at the same time. And I feel like that perfectly captured Juliette's mindset and how she was feeling, so we were made to experience and feel exactly that as a viewer. One thing I would say that I wasn't really a big fan of though was just how dark this episode was from a visual point of view. It was outrageously dark. I understand that it was probably done because the show wanted us to understand what it was like navigating an abandoned silo without any power, but still, it was difficult to watch at points. The flashbacks were used in a really intelligent manner during this episode. They all supported an overarching point in the present day, whether that be the sense of being alone, having to overcome fears, or even the survival instinct that Juliette had when she was younger. The opening scene where Jules was looking at the sea of decaying bodies in front of her was just so harrowing to witness. The show captured just how devastating the effects of the rebellion that occurred in 17 was, and that the sheriff pretty much led every person to their death if they didn't die fighting to stay inside. The scene where Jules was on the rope and we didn't know that she was going to fall into water, that was something that caught me by surprise and was a really exciting scene. Seeing her struggling to swim and then realizing that these people have probably never really been in water like that before was a realization that hit me only then. Why would they know how to swim? I'm hoping during the next episode we'll get to spend a bit of time back inside the original silo, as I want to see how Jules' departure has impacted the rest of the people in 18. Judging by the trailer, it looks like a rebellion could be on the horizon there, which we know has drastic consequences. I'm glad the show is back on our screens and I can't wait to see what happens next. So, there you have it, Silo Season 2 Episode 1, Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos on your favourite TV series and movies being broken down, then click on the card in the top corner. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.